Battle of Tours, also known as the Battle of Poitiers, occurred in 732 between the Frankish forces led by Charles Martel and the Islamic Umayyad Caliphate's army led by Abdul-Rahman al-Ghafiqi. This significant clash took place near Tours in present-day France and is often considered a crucial moment in European history. In 710, Musa ibn Nusayr, the Muslim governor of Africa, sought to raid Spain and enlisted the help of Julian, a Byzantine official with a grudge against Roderick, the Visigoth king of Spain. Julian loaned Musa 4 ships, leading to a successful raid and sparking further ambitions. In 711, Tariq ibn Ziyad, under Musa's command, crossed the Straits of Gibraltar with 7,000 men, defeating Roderick and gaining control of Spain. Musa's successor, expanded Muslim influence into Aquitaine from 717 to 718. Over subsequent years, Muslim control fluctuated across southern, central, and northern Gaul. The Franks, the dominant population in Gaul, were divided due to internal feuds. Eudes of Aquitaine, taking advantage of the Frankish turmoil, declared independence but faced opposition from Charles Martel. Upon the death of Pepin II in 714, a dispute arose over the Frankish throne between Pepin's legitimate grandson and illegitimate son. Eudes sought independence, prompting Charles Martel's wrath. Aquitaine, now bordering Umayyad territory, faced incursions, with Eudes clashing against the Umayyads, notably defending Toulouse in 721. Despite scattered victories, the Umayyad armies continued raiding into Aquitaine. In 732, they defeated Aquitanian forces at Bordeaux, sacking the region. Eudes, despite his differences with Charles, sought aid from him. The Umayyad army, occupied with plundering Bordeaux, provided Charles and Eudes with an opportunity to assemble a force. They marched south to confront this new threat. Charles Martel assembled an army estimated to be between 15,000 to 20,000 strong, comprising a diverse mix of professional soldiers with varied nationalities and languages. These troops had served under Charles in campaigns throughout Gaul and Germany. Additionally, the army included militia with limited weaponry and military skills. The Franks, known for their toughness, primarily fought as heavy infantry, wearing some armor and wielding swords and axes. The extent of Frankish reliance on cavalry is debated, as infantry traditionally dominated European battlefields, and cavalry was just beginning to gain prominence. The strength of the Frankish forces lay in their determination in battle, but a notable weakness was their relative lack of discipline. Unlike well-disciplined armies, the Franks struggled in maintaining order during engagements. Furthermore, Charles Martel's army faced logistical challenges, lacking the means to sustain a proper supply train. As a result, the troops had to rely on foraging and living off the land, adding a level of unpredictability to their operations. Abd-al-Rahman ibn Abdallah al-Ghafiqi served as the governor of Spain and led the Caliphate army during the Battle of Tours. His forces primarily consisted of Moors who specialized in mounted warfare, relying on their bravery and religious zeal to compensate for their lack of armor or proficiency in archery. Instead, the Moors predominantly fought with scimitars and lances. The hallmark of their military strategy was mass cavalry charges, utilizing sheer numbers and courage to overwhelm adversaries. This tactic had proven successful over vast distances, leading to victories against numerous opponents. However, a notable weakness was their limited defensive capabilities. The Moors were primarily oriented towards offensive actions, lacking substantial training or a clear concept of defensive strategies. Both the Umayyad and Frankish armies incorporated infantry into their ranks, but the Umayyad forces leaned more heavily on mounted cavalry. The Umayyads were believed to have a slight advantage due to their use of stirrups, a technology that the Franks were thought not to have adopted at that time. The Umayyad army numbered roughly between 20,000 to 25,000 soldiers, similar to the Franks, and like their counterparts, they relied on foraging and living off the land for sustenance. Charles Martel marched with his army avoiding the old Roman roads, hoping to take the Muslims by surprise. The two armies approached each other in the early autumn of 732. Abd-al-Rahman's army had succeeded in plundering many towns and churches, and they were overwhelmed with their loot. They met in an unknown location somewhere south of Tours, between that city and Poitiers. Abd al-Rahman was surprised by the arrival of the Franks. Abd al-Rahman faced a dilemma. To fight, he would have to abandon his loot, and he knew that his men would balk at that order. Luckily for him, Charles did not attack, but merely kept his distance and observed the Muslims for about a week. According to Arab sources, the Franks drew up in a large square, with hills and trees in their front to diminish or break up Muslim cavalry charges. Abd al-Rahman used that break to send men south with the loot, where they could recover it after they beat the Franks. In the meantime, Charles was awaiting the arrival of his militia, whom he used primarily as foragers for his fighting men and less as fighters themselves. For a span of 6 days, the two opposing armies engaged in a tense standoff, marked by minor skirmishes and a reluctance from either side to initiate a full-scale attack. The Umayyad forces, under the command of Abd al-Rahman, refrained from launching an assault as they awaited the arrival of their complete strength. Despite Abd al-Rahman's proven command capabilities, he found himself outmaneuvered, allowing Charles Martel to concentrate his forces and strategically select the battlefield. The Franks, well prepared for the cold weather and possessing a tactical advantage due to the terrain, adopted a defensive posture. On the other hand, the Caliphate army, not adequately equipped for the intense cold, hesitated to attack what they perceived might be a numerically superior Frankish force. The strategic dilemma unfolded as the Muslims desired the Franks to venture into the open, while the Franks, organized in a tightly packed defensive formation, hoped for the Umayyads to advance uphill into the wooded area. This impasse evolved into a waiting game, ultimately won by Charles Martel. After 7 days of cautious observation, probing, and strategic maneuvering by both sides, Abd al-Rahman deemed his loot secure enough to shift focus to the impending battle. The exact date of the encounter remains uncertain, though some sources suggest October 10th. The chilly morning air hung still over the fields of Tours as the two mighty forces faced each other, a palpable tension building in the moments preceding the Battle of Tours. Charles Martel, the shrewd Frankish commander, surveyed the Umayyad forces massing for their impending charge. He understood the Muslim fighting style well and had a plan to counter it. With precision, Charles organized his men into a defensive square. The core of this formation was comprised of his staunch Frankish followers, seasoned warriors well versed in the art of battle. To bolster their ranks, troops from various tribes subject to the Franks were strategically placed within the square. The atmosphere was charged with anticipation as the Franks braced themselves for the oncoming storm. As the Umayyad cavalry thundered toward them in a mass charge, the Frankish square stood firm. Javelins and throwing axes sailed through the air, finding their marks with deadly accuracy, wreaking havoc among the Muslim ranks. The clash was fierce and chaotic, the battlefield echoing with the clash of steel, the cries of men, and the thundering hooves of horses. Abd al-Rahman, trusting in the tactical superiority of his cavalry, ordered repeated charges against the Frankish square. However, this time, the faith the Muslims had in their proven cavalry tactics was not met with success. In a rare confrontation where medieval infantry faced relentless cavalry charges, the disciplined Frankish soldiers proved resolute. They withstood the assaults, refusing to yield despite the relentless pressure. Arab sources later recounted that the Arab cavalry, though managing to breach the interior of the Frankish square at times, could not break the determined Franks. The men of the north stood as an immovable wall, a belt of ice frozen together, their swords cutting through the Arab forces. The Austrasians, vast of limb and iron of hand, fought bravely amid the chaos, their unwavering resolve holding the line. In the thick of the battle, Charles Martel emerged as a formidable leader, earning the moniker the Hammer for his unyielding strength and strategic prowess. The clash raged on, each side locked in a desperate struggle for supremacy. The fields bore witness to a clash of cultures, a testament to the unwavering spirit of the Franks against the formidable Umayyad cavalry. The course of the Battle of Tours could have taken a different turn had the Muslim forces maintained control. According to Muslim narratives, on the second day of intense fighting, Frankish scouts infiltrated the Muslim camp and began raiding their supplies. This unexpected assault prompted a significant portion of the Muslim army to break away from the battlefield and hastily return to defend their plunder. What initially seemed like a tactical maneuver transformed into a full-scale retreat. In the midst of this chaos, as Abd al-Rahman endeavored to restore order and deal with the breach in the defensive square, he found himself surrounded by Frankish warriors. In the ensuing struggle, Abd al-Rahman lost his life, a critical turning point in the battle. Contrasting accounts emerged from Frankish sources, claiming the battle lasted only 1 day. According to their records, word spread among the Arab army that Frankish cavalry posed a threat to the booty they had acquired from Bordeaux. In response, a significant number of Muslim cavalry returned to their camp. To the remaining Muslim forces on the battlefield, this retreat seemed like a full-scale withdrawal, and it quickly became one. Both Frankish and Muslim histories converge on the fact that, while attempting to halt the apparent retreat, Abd al-Rahman became encircled, leading to his demise. The Muslims, in the wake of this pivotal event, retreated to their camp. During the night, the Muslim forces received news of Abd al-Rahman's death in the intense fighting. In response to this significant loss, the Umayyad forces made the strategic decision to retreat under the cover of darkness, leaving the Franks victorious on the battlefield. The responsibility to pursue the retreating Umayyads fell to Umayyad and his remaining troops, who chased them back across his lands and over the Pyrenees. On the other hand, Charles Martel, recognizing the advantage of maintaining a degree of Umayyad presence in Aquitaine, chose not to completely annihilate the fleeing raiders. Instead, he turned his forces around and marched back north. This decision served Charles' interests by keeping Umayyad occupied in Aquitaine, diverting his resources and attention to the southern region. The Battle of Tours in 732, often debated for its historical significance, played a role in deterring Umayyad settlement in Frankish territory for that particular year due to Charles Martel's victory. However, it may not be as definitively decisive as commonly depicted. Subsequent events illustrate this, as Arab raids persisted with incursions in 734 and 736. The most significant invasion took place in 739, extending nearly as far as Dijon before being repelled by a combined effort of Frankish and Lombard forces.